Welcome, welcome! It's my dog with the TexasSpaceNavy bringing you another Star Citizen video. And today I thought I would bring you some more talk about 3.14. It is still in the PTU, but it has moved into Wave 2. So if you're a Wave 2 person, you should have access to the PTU and be able to test out most things 3.14. So, what are some of the issues they are still having with 3.14? Well, recently they discovered a bug that was causing some major issues as far as, ships blowing up and that sort of thing. So, they have definitely put some work in to fix some of those things. Or at least they want people testing it to see if the fix actually worked. They had to fix a loading screen bug. They are continuing to do balances on, fighter weapons and all of that. And that's probably going to be where I'm going to spend most of my discussion today, is on this weapon rebalance and balancing thing, the capacitors, that sort of thing. I know a lot of people probably like it. There's probably a lot of people that hate it. You can tell that alone on Spectrum. Where do I fit in it? Well, I'm not a big fan where it stands right now, but I'm also not so naive to think that this is near a final product of it. This is just the first iteration of a role weapon ship balance that they plan on doing. They're going to continue to tweak this probably over the next 3 or 4 patches at least. Right now they're really focusing in on the fighters and how they want those fighters to fit in certain roles. And if you've looked at some of the dev comments out there, they've pretty much said that, light and medium fighters are anti-fighter for the most part, and your heavy fighters are going to be geared more towards taking on bigger ships, or ships bigger than they are, like a Constellation, that sort of thing. Now, they aren't necessarily intended to solo those ships, though they will be able to slowly as they whittle down shields and shield hit points. But, the heavy fighters aren't necessarily meant to go into dogfights. So your Ares ships, the Ares Ion, Ares Inferno, those are very dedicated to taking on bigger classed ships than, say your light fighters. Now, are they saying that you can't take on a light fighter? No, not at all. Not at all, period. I expect that they will do extremely well against light fighters, maybe one-shotting or two-shotting them, if you want to say that. They may be putting holes right through them, because we will get physicalized damage at some point or another where components and the whole 9 yards can get damaged and ships won't just explode. So I would imagine that those bigger ship guns, the size 7s that are on the Ares, will start punching holes through smaller ships. So one thing I do want to add in this video here, you see I'm actually doing an FPS mission on Korea, and I'm actually getting the hit markers. I haven't had hit markers from the beginning of this game, and I've seen other people get the hit markers. So I'm actually really happy that I'm seeing those. Is it, ideal? Is it like immersion breaking? Maybe a little bit. But I do like the fact that I'm getting the hit markers when I've never gotten them before. Hopefully they'll give us a toggle for that, and I'll be able to turn that off. But back to talking about weapons and their roles. I think that those bigger guns will punch right through fighters and cause all sorts of nasty damage, and maybe eventually blow them up. But it'll probably be much easier to incapacitate smaller fighters if you can hit them. Now, the smaller fighters are definitely designed to outmaneuver those heavy fighters and those bigger ships. So they do have a purpose or a role or a way to combat heavy weapons. And that maneuverability should be pretty telling in a close-in fight. They were talking about, at one point they talked about the Connie being a capital ship. It was a misjudged or misworded you know, sentenced by that dev. He's come back and said, well, he didn't mean that. He just meant that anything bigger than a fighter is in a different category, and it won't be able to keep tabs on the fighters that are, you know, circle strafing it or whatever. So you will have to have a crew with some of those, you know, turret gunners and stuff like that to be able to deal with some of the nastiness that light fighters could pose to the bigger, heavier Connie. Now, you know, if you have 4 or 5 of those light fighters, they may be able to bring a Connie down. This is all stuff that's going to be tested or need to be tested heavily. We're just not going to be able to expect that. You know, it's going to have to be put to the test. Originally, they were saying it's going to take 4 Hornets to bring down a Connie, or at least they should be on par with a Connie. So I'm guessing that means that 4 Hornets would, you know, give a Connie a run for the money and vice versa. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I kind of hope it still is, because that was the expectation. You know, I know they've already done some things, have gone back on some things in the past. They're going back on the Ion having the 2 large shields or two medium shields or whatever it's supposed to have, as opposed to what the Inferno has. So I don't know if it's going to get it back. I really don't know the answer to a lot of that. We'll have to wait and see how it all pans out, how these weapons are rebalanced, how they look when they're rebalanced, and you know, all of, you know, everything that goes into it. Armor still is a thing that has to come into play as well. You know, ballistics are supposed to go right through shields for the most part, but how are they going to deal with armor? I mean, it'll depend on the caliber of the ballistics, right? And the speed at which, you know, it's flying at the target. So, yeah, what all is going to go into that? And it should depend on the angle of the ship, or the angle in which that projectile hits. So, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Are they going to be programming all of that in? I mean, they have a really robust physics system already. Are they going to have a robust ballistics and ballistics algorithm coefficients, etc., that are played in there with armor? You know, we don't know the answer to that 100%, and it's going to take a little while before we do get the answer to that. So obviously we need the physical system in, the physicalized damage and physicalized armor. So we'll have to obviously wait and see how that ends up for us to be able to, you know, see where things really do fit. I mean, is an Idris going to have so much armor, like an Idris M going to have so much armor that those little fighters don't do anything? I mean, it should. Little fighters shouldn't be able to bring down the shields of an Idris. You're going to need a size 5 torpedo or bigger to even think about having impact on an Idris shields. That's my opinion. You know, I think that's where most everybody should feel about it. You shouldn't have a bunch of Merlins out there ripping apart an Idris. That just shouldn't happen. You know what I mean? Let me know what you think down below in the comments, because I'm interested in hearing your guys' take on that. I mean, I really don't think that the capital ships should be easily, or even with very intense coordinated effort, be brought down by just fighters. You know, I think there should be a level of bombers involved, or, you know, torpedo bombers of some kind involved. I just don't think that it should be easy peasy to get those shields down any other way. That's my personal opinion on it. I don't want an Idris or a Javelin to be a win button either, by any, you know, stretch of the word. But they're big ships. They have a lot of armor. They're tough. They should act that way. It should be difficult. And if you look at the precedent that Wing Commander is, then it makes sense that those capital ships would require torpedoes to help bring down shields and stuff. Because that's what was the case in Wing Commander. Now, you were able to bring down the occasional turret, depending on which version of Wing Commander you played. But largely, you know, I think that having those torpedo ships involved should be a big deal. it should be something that, you know, is required to bring down the big ships. Of course, we don't have our hands on those big ships at the moment, so we don't know how tough they're going to be or what kind of balancing is going to go into that. Now, Xenothreat and 3.14 should give us a great idea on how tough and how you know, durable some of those ships will be. And I hope that we start seeing that they're much, much tougher, and that you almost have to have the help from a Javelin or a bunch of torpedo ships like the Retaliators or the Eclipses to be able to bring one down. That would be really awesome. And I know my org has a wing or a squadron of those type ships, and that's how we actually completed Xenothreat the first time around. When the Idrises attacked, we just sat there with, you know, some nasty torpedo bombers and made short work of them. So is that going to be effective again in Xenothreat 2.0 when it comes into 3.14? We'll see. And, you know, they've been trying to test it out on the PTU, but there have been all sorts of back-end problems that have caused major desync bugs. And again, that's something that they think they've figured out how to fix, or what was causing it. So, you know, hopefully that's true. And hopefully that'll actually lead to more desync bug fixes, because that's the #1 problem anybody and everybody's had with this game when it comes to player versus player type combat, is the desync has been really nasty. So I hope we have come a long ways in fixing that, or CIG has rather, and that we can start seeing those improvements come along. A lot of people thought, well, server meshing is what's going to fix that, and in some regards it may, but the server tick rate is also a big way to fix that issue as well. But there's got to be something else causing it as well in the programming there related to the servers. So I'm hoping they have fixed that, and, you know, going forward we won't experience nearly as much desync, because I can tell you personally, I have had a lot of it, and it's not a lot of fun. You know, it sucks. And they think that a lot of the exploding ships and stuff were caused by some of that desync, and I can tell you that from experience and from what they were saying in the testing, it was really bad in the Connie. You would take the Connie Taurus or something like that out, and you would blow up well before you got to the ground. And so one person would see something on their screen, and another person would see something completely different. So yeah, desync is, or was, a major issue. When will we get 3.14? That is a much more speculative topic. My guess is we'll get it before August 1st. Probably next week. We might get it by this weekend, but I really doubt it. They still have a lot of stuff they have to clean up and test out. So my guess is before the beginning of August. So what are you guys most looking forward to in 3.14 now? What do you guys think the biggest hurdle is before we get it out? Let me know in the comments down below. And they just announced a CitizenCon competition where you can put out a 45-second video and they'll air it during CitizenCon between panels. Are you guys going to participate in that? I know my org is, and I'm really looking forward to see what we can come up with and what everybody else comes up with as well. Thank you all for tuning in and watching the videos. I'm sorry it's been a few days since I last put one out. I've had a lot of work to do, and I do apologize, but thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm Mud Dog with the Texas Space Navy. I'll see you out in the verse.